Topic: Need, the Great Equaliser by Nizamuddin Siddiqui. By the time his son was born, Nasir had become such a cynic that he had started coining wisecracks to fit all kinds of situations. So, in his view, bottled water was not just water but a means of separating the ordinary Karachites from the chosen ones, those who had made it in the world. The reason for Nasir's bitterness was simple. After the birth of his firstborn, a girl, he had come down from Badin to Karachi in the hope that the Garib Parwar city would treat him well. However, he had found that life was just as difficult in Karachi as it was in his hometown. It wasn't that Nasir hadn't found a job in his hometown, rather, in his infinite wisdom, the first matriculate of his extended family thought that he would manage to earn a decent living in the metropolis. So he moved to Karachi with his wife Jamila and daughter Anjum. But once in Karachi, he found that it had its full share of poor people. Some were so poor that they slept on the footpath. They ate and even bathed on the footpath. And they did this in the full view of people wearing spotless clothes and being driven in Corollas or Civics to their flashy, posh offices. Nasir started off as a laborer, working as a beast of burden in the factories in Korangi industrial area, which was not far from Zia colony, the Kachi Abadi, where he lived with his family. Along with the other job seekers, he would line up near the gate of a factory by 7 a.m. each day and wait for the manager to come out between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m. to hire 3 or 4 men to make up for the workers who were absent that day. If Nasir was among the chosen few for the day, he would thank God for his mercies and enter the factory content in the knowledge that his family would not go hungry that day. If not, he would go to the next factory to try his luck. Nasir soon realized that he needed a permanent job, not daily labor. An old friend of his helped him land a peon's job in the office of a newspaper. He was offered a monthly salary of only 4,250 rupees but accepted the job because it was permanent work. However, the newspaper job largely failed to lift Nasir's spirits and to change the state of his mind. Moreover, he became more aware of the issues that concerned the poor. The more he worked with the journalist, the more he realized that the poor had no one to turn to. He found out that even though the journalist knew fully well about the raw deal the poor were getting, they did hardly anything to change the situation. But then there was a pleasant change in Nasir's life when Jamila gave birth to a beautiful boy. Both Jamila and Nasir were overjoyed. However, the joy was short lived for Nasir because a new family member meant additional expenses. He informed his boss of his problems and requested him to raise his salary. The boss asked him a lot of questions. How many years have you worked for this organization? How many children do you have besides this new one? Where do you live? Etc. When he was convinced that Nasir was not one of those poor people who had a child to show for every year of their marriage, and that he had worked for the newspaper for a sufficient number of years, the boss promised to look into the matter. About 3 months later, he told Nasir with great flourish and excitement that his salary had been raised by 500 rupees. Nasir knew that the raise was insufficient to meet the rising cost of living, let alone the expenses of a newborn. But he thanked the boss and also shook hands with all the staff who took turns in telling him how lucky he was to have an extremely kind man as a boss. All this made Nasir angrier. He soon started talking to himself rather loudly. One day Jamila caught him cursing himself, simply for having contracted what he called a poor man's disease. गरीब आदमी, तुझे बीमारी भी गरीबों वाली ही है. अगर तेरे पास पैसा होता तो तेरा पेट खराब थोड़ी होता. तुझे या तो शुगर होती या तुझे हार्ट अटैक होता. You poor man, Even your disease is that of the poor. If you were rich, you would have had an upset stomach. You would have had diabetes or a heart attack. From the very beginning, Jamila had tried to empathize with Nasir, but she had no idea what was going on in his head. But having heard her husband mutter what she thought was rubbish, she knew that he was in deep trouble and needed help badly. The next day, when Nasir was feeling better and was getting ready to go to office, he said something which made Jamila realize that she had to act fast. You know, Jamila, the road that takes us poor people to work hasn't ever seen a wedding procession go from Korangi to defense, or from defense to Korangi, said Nasir. You mean to say that no Korangi man has ever wed a defense girl, and no defense man has ever married a Korangi girl? Asked Jamila. Yes, that's exactly what I mean, Nasir said. I don't think any family in defense has ever given away their daughter, or even their son, in marriage to a family in Korangi. He said. Jamila began thinking of how she could help her husband overcome their financial problems. Later that day, she discussed the matter with her friends who advised her to do something which earned at least 3000 rupees a month. When Jamila told Nasir what she wanted to do and requested him to look for ads in newspaper for maids, he lit a cigarette and began pacing up and down the small courtyard. After about 10 minutes, he said he would help her get a maid's job in defense. The following Sunday, the couple took the same road that, according to Nasir, had never seen a wedding procession go from Korangi to defense, as they began their search for a maid's job. About 40 minutes later, Nasir and Jamila were at one of the addresses mentioned in one of the classified ads. The guard, or perhaps the driver, asked them to wait for the lady of the house in the living room. Nasir and Jamila sat down on the rather thick carpet in the living room, waiting for the madam to come in. A few minutes later, a fair-skinned and tallish woman wearing a light pink dress walked in and sat herself down on the sofa. Looking down from her perch on the sofa, she told Jamila and Nasir seated on the floor that she worked for a pharmaceutical company. I need a maid who will take good care of my two children. Nabil is about 18 months old and my daughter Dua is 6 years old. You will have to manage their school uniforms, other clothes, and lunch and dinner. That is, if you do get the job. Both my husband and I are very worried about their nutrition because they don't seem to eat anything. She said that she would not pay a paisa more than 4,500 rupees and that Jamila would have to work for about 11 hours each day. You will have to be here from 7 in the morning till the time I get back from office, which is about 6 in the evening. Nasir told the madam that he had decided to accept the offer and that Jamila would start working at the bungalow from the first day of the next month. On the way out, Jamila asked Nasir to find out more about the madam's husband from the guard. During the journey back home, Jamila kept thinking about the similarities between her situation and that of the madam. The two women had two children each, and both had to spend more than 10 hours outside their homes, relying on others to take care of their children. How can any woman willingly work in an office while leaving the care of her children to others? And particularly when she has everything, a great house and even a car. Maybe her husband cannot work and she has to fulfill the financial responsibility alone, Jamila said to herself. Later, when Jamila was serving dinner to Nasir, he asked her why she wanted to learn more about the madam's husband. Well, I wanted to find out why she is forced to work. Maybe the husband is sick and cannot work. Nasir told her that the husband was a businessman and earned a lot. The guard told me that he has his own separate and bigger car, so he is quite well off. When they were bedding down for the night, Nasir advised Jamila to stop thinking about others. It's none of our business why she is working. We should just thank God that you have a nice job now. After a brief pause, he said, Some families allow their women to work so that they can keep hunger at bay. Others allow them to work so that they can buy an even bigger house. God decides who gets what, not me or you.